Hey everyone, this is Dr. Ann, and thanks so much for tuning into the Fit Foodie Pharmacist Show, the place to be for real talk with real experts and real results so that you can heal yourself naturally. Now, if you haven't done so already, make sure you come check us out at drann.com, spelled A and H as in healthy, because there you can get my free guide, The Clean Eating Rules. And it's the #1 guide for how to eat to lose weight. And this guide teaches you everything I learned on my personal weight loss journey. And it busts through some of the common misconceptions about weight loss, such as how you have to eat less in order to lose weight, which is completely not true. And you can get it for free at drann.com. So, in today's episode, I chat with Ivy Stirling, who is a nutritionist and coach, and she healed herself by changing her diet. She believes in the concept of bio-individuality, or that there isn't a single perfect plan or diet for every single person. She firmly believes in the healing power of food to reverse and prevent disease and also to slow the aging process. Ivy has worked in almost every facet of the food industry, including the USDA, and corporate and publishing, Montana State Extension Service, and the weight loss industry. So this gives her a unique perspective on the food industry and how we can effectively navigate through the maze of misinformation. And in today's episode, Ivy and I chat about how she healed herself and became a nutritionist and coach, what separates fact from fiction, and how to separate the two when it comes to foods, why inflammation is the #1 cause of health problems today and what causes inflammation, how to eat like a nutritionist, a day in the life of Ivy, and how to turn your body into a fat-burning machine, and much, much more. So let's go chat with Ivy. Information. So welcome, Ivy, to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, so excited to have you. You're just a ball of energy, so I'm sure people will love you. So let's just jump right in. I'm curious, how did you become a nutritionist and a coach?
I was really interested in sciences when I went to college, but then I realized when I got there that a lot of those kids were way smarter than I was. I thought I'd be a chemistry major, and I went, oh, I don't think so. So I realized I wanted to go for a soft science, and I always loved cooking and food, and I went, yeah, and it has more of the human touch, which is really what I want to do. I want to bring science, combine it with people, and not just be doing research.
Mm-hmm. The irony is, I became a pharmacist, and now I want to be a nutritionist.
Yeah, see? And so I became a coach because I found in just talking to people, I always had a pretty good grasp on nutrition because I love to read nutrition books. So every book that comes out, I try to read it and stay current with the information. And I had because I had a lot of information, I had a good grasp on how to eat pretty well for energy. And so in talking with people, what I realized is that you think you're doing the right thing, but you're misinformed. You're listening to the marketing, or you're listening to, and you know how studies are extrapolated to prove something that they want to that they want to prove, like the dairy industry will do, for example, research to prove something. So I started going, no, that's misinformation. Let me educate you. So what I found myself doing was just talking to people and saying, well, stop doing this and start doing this, and you'll have more success. So then I said, well, why don't I just do that for a living?
So tell me, you worked at the USDA, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do there?
Well, when I worked for USDA, I was doing brucellosis research. So brucellosis in cattle. And I worked for them, and I worked for Georgia State. Georgia State and also the USDA. And at another time I worked for USDA when I was in college. I worked at the pesticide research lab. And I was just a student then, so I was just really like the lab tech. But I was able to be around a lot of researchers and find out how they were collecting data, it's really helped me because, you know, this is how, when they're looking for pesticide in oranges, this is how they determine what it is. They take the orange rinds, they grind them up, etc. So that's given me a lot of information as to how research is done.
It's interesting. So you were doing research on brucellosis, which is a disease of cattle, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, undulant fever. Undulant fever.
Is that one of the reasons why you left the industry, was how food was being produced?
Yes, definitely. After USDA, I went into publishing because I worked for an editor who was doing nutrition texts, and so I worked there for a while. But when I moved, I married my husband and moved to Virginia, and I got a job at Eskimo Pie. So that was my first experience working with food industry. And yeah,
The ice cream, you mean?
oh yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
and once you start working in the food industry, you realize, and I tell people, look, you have to understand the food industry, they're business. They're there to make a profit. They are not there to bring you the healthiest foods. So you have to understand that's their motivation. There's nothing wrong with that. That's business. But the consumer has to be educated and be able to read labels and decipher their misinformation, which they will put out to sell their product.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So tell us more about this misinformation. What have you learned that people are not telling us?
Well, it's just like, for example, they can say, this is my favorite one. You know those naked drinks, the
I just had one for breakfast.
okay, no sugar added,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, no sugar added, but did you read the label in the back?
There were 2.5 apples in there. I was like, are you kidding me?
Okay. Well, most of the naked drinks that I've looked at are 22 to 29 grams of sugar
Yep.
in a serving, not in the whole juice. So in a serving. Now,
Um,
4 grams of sugar is a teaspoon. So you're looking at 5 to 6 to 7 teaspoons of sugar. So you go, but Ivy, it's fruit sugar. It doesn't matter. Fruit sugar, table sugar, honey, it's all processed in the body very similarly. Not exactly the same way, but very similarly. So they take a bunch of fruit, they condense it, they put it in this naked drink, and they say no sugar added, and you think you're eating something healthy, but you're really getting a very high sugar food. So is that misinformation? Not really, but is it the whole truth? No. So that's the way the food industry works.
and I just paid $4 for a little jar like this.
Right, right.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All juices, unless you see them being squeezed and you drink them right away, almost all of them are condensed. They're processed, flavors, sugars, fillers, color is added. So be very wary of juices unless you're squeezing them yourself or getting them from a juice bar.
So tell me, okay, I was at the grocery store today, right? And it said there was like natural chicken, and I'm like, I'm not really sure what that means. And it's like it said something about it's got like broth, you know. It's very confusing if it's not directly labeled as organic free range, but it says it's natural. Like, what does that really mean?
So really the best resource I could direct you to for this is Michael Pollan's book, Omnivore's Dilemma, because he goes into great detail about how food is manufactured, how it's labeled, and what all these mean, because it would take me a long time to explain all this. But all natural means, when it says a natural chicken, it just means that they were given a natural food. So they were fed a grain or whatever. If it says organic, it means they were fed an organic food. But still, that chicken can still be living on a space this big and in a condensed area where they don't get to roam around and be happy animals, and they just give them some organic pellets and they go, it's organic chicken. So you have to read about the industry. What I found interesting in that book was that if you have a house with 3,000 chickens in it and they sit on these little perches, but you have a little door like a cat door, and the chicken has the ability to go out, they can call them free range.
Wow.
So that book, Omnivore's Dilemma, gives a lot of information, a lot of detail, and I highly recommend you and your readers and your listeners read it.
That's
That's
awesome. Thank you. I'm going to make sure I link that up in the show notes for everybody. So from what I understand also, Ivy, you had your own personal health challenges that you overcame, which is kind of part of the reason you became a nutritionist. Can you
right.
share a little bit about that?
Yes, I was your typical stressed out, overcommitted mother. I was working like a more than full-time job, like 60 hours a week. I had 2 little kids. under the age of 3. My husband was starting a business, so it was a challenging time in our marriage, and I was stressed out. I was tired. My little one didn't sleep through the night. And so I was just doing what a lot of moms do, just trying to keep all the plates spinning, right? And so I wake up one day and I look down and I am covered with a rash. I mean, from my fingertips all the way through my head to my toes. Rash all over my body, completely inflamed, itchy, miserable. And my husband says, you have to go to the emergency room. So, of course, I go to the emergency room and the doctor says, well, are you under stress? And I just started to cry, you know.
Yes.
The only response. And so he says to me, look, you know, you're never going to get better. We don't know what caused this. It could be a food allergy. It could be all kinds of things. But you're never going to get better until you change your lifestyle. So I take the meds. He put me on steroids, anti-anxiety, sleeping meds. They gave me all these medications. And I go home and I realize that I've given up a lot, because as a young mother you sacrifice a lot, and I realized I'm just not willing to sacrifice my health. So I started working with a naturopathic physician because I knew that foods could be allergenic, and that was 25 years ago, and that's when I first started to look into food allergies. And I started reading the work of Dr. Elson Haas, who wrote the Detox Diet book 25 years ago, and he's just a brilliant doctor and naturopath. And what he looked at was, what are the 7 most common highly reactive foods in our food system today? And you know, when you look at those, that's pretty much the standard American diet.
Oh my.
So I started eliminating those foods and I started to get better. And then the doctor in the ER was right. I had to make a lifestyle change. So I was practicing yoga, and I eventually quit my job and became a yoga teacher.
Cool. So can you share what those 7 most, likely foods to cause inflammation or problems or sensitivities are?
Yeah, they're gluten, which is wheat and rye, dairy, sugar, corn, soy, peanuts, and eggs.
Hmm.
And what that means is, that doesn't mean everyone reacts to those foods. Those are the 7 most commonly or highly reactive foods. So if you can figure out, like, you could go to a doctor and be allergy tested, or you can just eliminate those foods from your diet and see how you feel. And I do a 14-day cleanse, eliminating those 7 foods. And what I do is, after 14 days, then we start to introduce one food at a time for a few days, see if you react. If you don't react, then that food is not a problem for you. But it's good to know what foods are creating problems in your body. Like, I believe when I was allergy tested, I didn't test that I was allergic to dairy. But when I have dairy, I get congestion, I get a runny nose, it makes me bloated. So I know that even though I'm not classically allergic to that food, I'm sensitive to it, and it's not a food that I digest well in my body. And it's good to know that about your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people don't understand that, just because you're not allergic to something doesn't mean you're not sensitive to it. So, meaning, you're sensitive, you might not have like a reaction where your throat's gonna close off and you're gonna die, but you have acne, your face swells up, or, you just have some digestive issues. And sometimes they don't show up until a couple hours later, a couple days later, and you might not link the two, but it's because you're sensitive to that food.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a really good point. So people will often say to me, like today I was teaching this class, and they said, is dairy good for you? It might be good for you, but not good for you. So that's what you have to sort of figure out. And then, of course, in that book I was referring to earlier, Michael Pollan's book on Divorce Dilemma, he talks about the dairy industry and why dairy can be a problematic food. In addition to it being allergenic, it's full of hormones, they're full of antibiotics, and so you have to be educated about how to select dairy, if you want to eat dairy.
Okay. It's interesting, those foods that you mentioned. I don't know if you know JJ Virgin.
Oh,
she
yeah,
just came up with a book, and those were the exact 7 foods that she said people should avoid if they want to drop weight fast.
Yeah, so. But her work also is based on that original work from Dr. Elson Haas.
Yeah, it sounded so familiar. That's why I was like, oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he really helped me a lot. Bought that book and I started reading and studying about detoxing back then. And then JJ, of course, has taken that information and made it so much more user-friendly for people. And it's kind of the same thing that I do when she does a detox. Hers is a little more detailed and she has more information, so I get that. But yeah, I think she's amazing. Yeah.
So when you talk about a cleanse, that 14-day period, do you just get rid of all of those 7 foods altogether?
Mhm. And then what I like my clients to do pretty much across the board is try to eat 4 times a day. So if you can eat 4 times a day, so every 3.5 to 4 hours, then you are giving your digestive system a little more of a rest, and you're not stimulating sugar, because every time we eat, we stimulate blood sugar and we stimulate insulin. So it gives everything a little bit of a rest, and I just think it's good to kind of stretch out your eating, give your body time to digest food, initiate a hunger response, and get back into that natural rhythm that we have. Now, some people need to eat a little more frequently, but it's rare that a person needs to eat more frequently than that.
Hmm. So after that 14-day period, you say reintroduce things. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, before we get to that point, if once you're dropping those 7 things, what are you left with to eat?
Well, everyone says that, and you know, it's just the initial response. But there are so many vegetables to eat, and I was in this class I've been working with. This was the 3rd week we met, and even they were saying once you start eating more vegetables, you start to miss them, and now they're trying more vegetables, and they're finding that they taste really good. But if you're used to eating just green beans, iceberg lettuce, corn, and peas, it's going to be more difficult for you to branch out. So a whole array of vegetables. You definitely protein. Now, if you are vegetarian, it's a little bit harder because you're a little bit limited even more. Because soy, most vegetarians look to soy as their protein source, so it's a little more challenging for them. But there's still ways around it. Protein shakes, for example, which I'm a big fan of. And so you can eat lots of vegetables, which you should anyway, and depending on what nutritionist you follow, it's anywhere from 50 to 75% of your diet should be vegetable. And then fruits, nuts, protein sources, and there's still nut-like grains. When I do this 14-day cleanse diet, you can have rice, you can have rice noodles, but I prefer they have the more nut-like grains like quinoa, amaranth, millet. Those are the grains recommended by Donna Gates, Body Ecology, and I just think she's brilliant. I think she's amazing. She's into gut health. So there's still lots and lots of foods. You're just avoiding sort of the foods that we're most commonly exposed to, right? The breads, the cheeses, and there's wonderful cheeses made with nuts, and there's just lots and lots of choices. You have to get creative. Yeah.
I might like that because I am probably a little sensitive to dairy, so I try to avoid it. But a nut cheese, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and once you start it, like I give people ideas, like you can make a meal of this, you can have snacks of this. Once I start giving people ideas, then they start to get more creative too. And initially it's a change, but after a while, that's the way I normally eat. I don't eat a lot of the 7 highly reactive foods. I still eat eggs because they don't bother me. I eat a little bit of soy just because I like it, like I make miso soup. So but it becomes a different way of life, and that's really what you're looking to. You want to change the way you eat because you want to change your lifestyle and the energy of the person that you are. And so whenever I have a client say to me, okay, I'll do this for a while, and then can I go back to the way I was eating? And I say, yeah, but you're going to go back to feeling the way you used to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So once you realize that it's not just about I want to get rid of my ulcers or I want to lose weight, but I really want to feel more vibrant and more energetic. I want to feel like I can do whatever I want to with my life. When you are ready to make that kind of a change, then the foods that you will eat to accommodate that, it'll just be more natural.
So how does your typical day look like in terms of the food then? Because you're probably at a point now where you're sustaining this lifestyle, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's easy after a while. So this is what I recommend. I tell my clients, I really believe in bio-individuality. What works for one person might not work for another.
mhm.
As a matter of fact, in this class today, the one gal said she tried green drinks, vegetable juices, and just there was no way she was going to drink that swamp water. And I said, see, I love them. So you see the difference? They're probably good in my body and not good for you. Um, so, so, but what is consistent that I have all my clients do is I have them eat 4 times a day. So I have them do breakfast within an hour of waking up, because research shows that you really want to start to get nutrition within an hour of waking in order to keep metabolism moving optimally. And then 3.5 hours later is lunch. And if you have a good breakfast, you won't have that 10 o'clock morning crash where all you want is a bagel or a donut, right? You should be able to go 3.5 to 4 hours. And then an afternoon snack is around 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then dinner is around 6:30, 7 o'clock. No eating after 8 o'clock. So that's something that I put, unless someone has hypoglycemia and they need to eat a little more often, that's a consistent thing that anyone can do. And then if you think of it, well, that's basically so 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 1 snack, but you can switch that up. Like you can have, you can have breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner, you can, whatever combination you want to do. I like my clients to eat their biggest meal in the middle of the day instead of dinner, because they have more time to digest it.
There's a saying, eat like a king in the morning, a prince at lunch, and a pauper at dinner,
Yeah,
because we're not as active at nighttime, and the American diet is the complete reverse.
right.
So,
But I don't put the king at breakfast. I probably put him in the middle of the day. So
at
Prince,
lunch.
King, Pauper. Yeah.
Okay, so can you share like what you actually eat though for breakfast, like, and what do you actually eat for lunch and for dinner? Just some sample menus that people can get an idea.
Yeah, I've been doing protein shakes for about 10 years. 10 years ago when I tried the first protein shake, I was like, oh, yeah, no, because they didn't really taste very good. And they've made great improvements in protein shakes. So I really believe in them. And part of the reason I went to protein shakes was I like to eat fruit in the morning. It's cleansing, it's easy to digest. But I was worried about raising my blood sugar as I got older. So I would do fruit and an egg, and then I just decided to try these protein shakes. And for me, they work beautifully in my body. They give me energy, and they're processed really quickly. They stay with me for 3.5 to 4 hours. So I'll have a protein shake. Sometimes I have a green juice that I add a little protein powder to, because I love fresh vegetables in a green juice. And then lunch, I almost always have the largest meal of the day. So I usually have a salad, vegetables, and 4 ounces of protein. I'm a O blood type, and O's tend to like protein in their diet. So if I don't have a salad and vegetables, I have roasted vegetables or some combination of vegetables and 4 ounces of protein. That's pretty consistent. Like today, I have a little bit of a cold, so I had a chicken vegetable soup and some avocado and a little salad. So that was I had for lunch. And then a typical snack, my favorite current snack is an apple and almond butter. I just love it. So you
Yeah,
want
it's
to
good.
get, again, the combination of protein with fruit or vegetables. I love vegetables and hummus. Sometimes I just have soup again as a snack, salad, any sort of a vegetable kind of combination. I don't do a lot of grains anymore, but that's because I'm in my mid-50s. So when I was younger and I had horses and I worked on a ranch, I needed calories and I could burn it off. But I noticed that I was just getting more bloating, more weight gain. So I pretty much dropped grains for me. I do a little bit of rice or quinoa, but I don't really miss the grains. So I'm doing more nutrient-dense foods, which ideally you do as you get older. And then dinner is just sort of a repeat of lunch. It's just a lighter portion.
Mhm.
So that's how I typically eat.
Okay, so I have to ask you this because,
Yes.
you're talking about you were in the food industry, you want to help people kind of wade through this maze of misinformation. Like, so I literally just interviewed somebody who is an expert in paleo fitness, right? And he
Hmm.
was talking to me about how he does intermittent fasting and he doesn't recommend eating anything until noon or so, and he has like coffee with fat in it, and so that's his first meal of the day until noon, right?
Hmm.
And so you say, oh, you have to have breakfast in the first hour when you
Oh
wake up.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then he's talking about how, millet and quinoa, those are great, but only if you're carb cycling. So, I mean, there's just so much misinformation, but also conflicting information. So, how do you find out what's right or not?
Well, like I said, I'm always fascinated by any nutrition book that comes out, so I tend to read a lot of them. And then I follow about 15 nutritionists who I think are brilliant and are really doing good work. Some are doctors, some are researchers, but all nutritionists have their own little thing. It's much like politics, right?
Hmm.
One person believes this, one person believes, but there's certain things that they all agree on. So when I hear of something, I tend to go to those sources and see what they're saying because they're smarter than me. They're doing the research, they're reading the papers. All I do is read the books that they produce. But I want to get their opinion and go like, what does Dr. Johnny Bowden think? I respect him. What does Louise Gittleman think? So I go to these nutritionists and see what they say. Then it gets to be, instead of my opinion, these are what the experts say. You guys do what you want. But pretty much most of them agree on 4 times a day. So most of them agree that blueberries are good for you. Most of them agree that, so they'll have these commonalities. Now, Rob Wolf, who I think is a brilliant scientist, and I believe he's a biochemist, he wrote the Paleo Solution. And I don't know if you've ever seen his interview on YouTube. It's about an hour-long interview, but he just takes every objection that people send him to the paleo way of life, and he answers all those questions brilliantly. And so I really believe that paleo is very good for a lot of people. It's not good for everyone. Then I'll read about other people who say they're paleo and they're saying these things, and Rob Wolf doesn't say those things. So everyone distorts it a little bit or changes it a little bit. I don't remember reading Rob's book that he says you shouldn't do breakfast because the research shows that, especially for weight loss or correcting blood sugar or anything like that, that breakfast eaten within an hour of waking is the best thing to cure your metabolism. So I don't know. I would have to go back to the source and say, what does he really say about breakfast? But
Hmm.
so that makes me say, from the people I read, everyone agrees that breakfast is necessary.
Well, but I also think it gets to your point that every person is different and
Right,
there's different strategies that work for different people.
right.
And, that might work very well for him, right? But if someone like me tried it, it might not work as well. So
Exactly, exactly.
the whole bio-individuality
Yeah.
comes into play.
And because I mostly my my expertise kind of is in weight loss resistance. I get a lot of people who can't lose weight. And what I tell them all the time is, look, diets work. They do. The reason the average person trying to lose weight has been on 8 diets is they haven't found the right fit for them.
Hmm.
So once you find the right fit that you say, this is a plan I can follow the rest of my life, then your weight will stabilize, you'll become healthier, et cetera, et cetera. But what happens is people will read about a new idea, oh, I'm going to adopt that, but they're really not on board with it. It doesn't feel good in their body. They don't like it. So what are you going to do? You got to find the match.
So are you
Kind of like dating.
suggesting oh my gosh, that's a whole nother arena that I'm like, oh, I don't want to touch that. So are you suggesting, right, then, okay, there's so many diets out there, there's so many different things that can work for different people. I mean, do you recommend then just trying something and then sticking with it, tracking your progress, and then going from there?
Hmm. And also, sort of, just because your friend is doing it, you have to kind of look at it and say, does that sound like something I can do for a long time? Now, you might have to adjust, like today when I was talking to this group of elderly women, and they were talking about, I mean, when I first started and you said eat more vegetables, it was hard for me, but now I miss them. So initially, a plan that involved a lot of vegetables might not sound good to them. But knowing that all the top nutritionists agree, whether it's paleo, whether it's Atkins, whoever it is, they all agree that you need to eat more vegetables. That's a good place to start. And they just disagree in the portions of vegetables. But almost everyone is 50 to 75% vegetable. So you just have to go, okay, I'm going to try this, just like you said, for a week or two, see how I feel, see if it's working. But honestly, that's why people need a coach, because I know what all the diets are. You can talk to me about this, and this has this thing going for it, this is what's bad about that one, da 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 da. And a coach, then you try a diet for a week or so, you might not feel good, but you might also be, recovering from craving addictions and things like that. So a coach can help you get through those things and advise you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Learn from somebody who's been there, done that, and is willing to share it with you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you were talking about earlier some of the people that you really admire and look up to in terms of nutrition information. Can you share some more of your resources or who you look to?
Oh yeah, I love Dr. Johnny Bowden. I just think he calls himself the rogue nutritionist, but he's really good at taking the research and not just not reading what they extrapolated from it, but looking at the whole picture and saying, yeah, but look at this, da, 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 da. So he's really good at bringing that information to lay people, and I think he's really brilliant. I love Dr. Louise Gittleman. She wrote this book, The Fat Flush Program, which I don't like the title, but she's very much into the whole idea of cleansing the liver and adrenal functioning, et cetera, and I think she's really brilliant. J.J. Virgin is wonderful. The Eads, Dr. and Mary Eads, they're doctors, and they're into like protein. Rob Wolf, I think, is brilliant. Donna Gates I just ordered her book. I started it last night. She wrote The Body Ecology, and I read that a couple years ago, but she has this new book out. I can't exactly remember the title, but it's How to Slow the Aging Process with food and also taking care of your body. And she's like an expert in gut health. So I go to her for any sort of digestive questions, from lactobacillus to why do I have GERD. I just think she's brilliant, and I love her whole approach, which is, again, taking care of the body, healing, not just going on a diet. God, there's so many. I don't know.
I'm sure there's a ton of women that would love to learn from her. Anti-aging is a hot topic.
Yeah, yes. I love her.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, great. Now, as far as weight loss, you deal with weight loss resistance, right? Mm-hmm. What is the most common cause of weight loss resistance?
This is really funny. I tell clients this all the time. You're not eating enough. Isn't that funny? But they'll tell me what they eat in a typical day, and it's like, okay, lunch was a couple of crackers with some cheese on it. No, that's not nearly enough lunch.
That's a snack.
Yeah, that's barely a snack. So basically, that's one of the things is they don't eat enough. The second thing, especially women, they don't eat often enough. So they eat maybe in the morning and then they don't eat till dinner. But their body's like going, what's going on? What's going on? I don't know what to do. I guess we should store it because I don't know if she's going to feed me again. So a lot of what I see people do, which is pretty common, is we're naturally fat-burning machines. We are meant to eat. The insulin takes the blood sugar to the muscles and says, do you need it for energy? Yes, I need it for energy. And we burn the calories. Our natural response, the hormone is released in our brain that tells us we're hungry again, and we eat again. But most of the people, at least in America, are fat storage machines. So their metabolism is so out of whack that they eat, and their body says, well, she doesn't feed me regularly, so I'll subsist on this little bit of food, and the rest I'll just store. And then when blood sugar and insulin are high, the hormones that tell you you're hungry are low, so you don't get this response of, oh, I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore. So what I try to help people do is turn their machine back into a fat-burning machine.
Well, so how do you do that?
Oh, well, eating regularly,
Okay.
Drinking water, because when we become dehydrated, it lowers basal metabolic temperature, which slows metabolism. Eating protein, because protein stimulates the formation of muscle, which you have stronger mitochondria, which burns calories. So eating protein at every meal and snack. Getting fiber, because fiber slows the metabolism of sugar and makes you feel full longer. Water, protein, fiber. Getting sleep and rest. Like I tell my clients, stress and weight loss cannot coexist. You have got to get on top of the stress, because stress raises cortisol, it gives you adrenal failure. So those are just four easy, quick things you can do. Eat 4 times a day, eat breakfast, protein every meal and snack, more fiber, more water, de-stress.
Sounds like I need to get massages more often then.
Definitely. Plus, that stimulates lymph system, which gets the toxins out of your body, which is really good.
Okay. Now I got a way to justify it then.
Yeah, for sure. It's so good for your health. It's so,
Mhm.
so good for your health. Anything you can do, and that's why, it's funny because clients will say to me, "Oh, do I have to exercise?" And I say, well, really, the body, it's natural for the body to move. If your body doesn't like to move, you're already in a state of disease. So pay
Mm.
attention to that.
Yeah. Well, and I see that a lot, right? I had at one time I spoke at an arthritis support group and in a fibromyalgia support group, and they were saying it just hurts to move, so then they don't move. And I'm like, no, that's the worst thing you can do because it's this endless cycle. Then you lose more mobility, and it hurts even more to move, and it's just I'm like, you need to find ways to get active and get those joints and moving again. So I
Yeah,
agree with
now
you.
I have 2 clients right now, well, actually 3, but I'm thinking of these 2 women that are working to lose 100 pounds. They're both doing beautifully, but both of them told me the same thing, which was, Ivy, when I started working with you, after about a week, my cravings went away and I didn't have the joint pain anymore, because we know that high blood sugar leads to inflammation, which makes joint pain worse. Now moving is not as difficult as it was when I first started. So that's another thing. Like all these people who have pain, almost all of them have inflammation. And so if you can get the inflammatory response down, then they're going to feel better about moving their body.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you that inflammation is a big issue in health today. I mean, um, we see it everywhere. Heart disease, we see it in autoimmune diseases everywhere. Cancer. Now, what causes inflammation?
Well, it's caused by a number of things. There are definitely certain foods that create inflammation. Sugar.
Mhm.
Sugar, just everyone's body, it creates inflammation. Foods that turn quickly to sugar, so grains, bread, rice, pasta, white potatoes, they raise blood sugar, create inflammation. But also trans fats create inflammation. A diet heavy in animal protein can create inflammation, especially if it's not really good animal protein, like not wild, but not farm raised, but stockyard raised cattle, etc.
Mhm.
And then stress can create inflammation. So you can be running and eating really well and taking care of yourself, but you're so stressed you have inflammation.
Hmm. So if somebody, how would they know that they were inflamed?
They'll have, usually it's joint pain. So they'll have not muscle ache, but joint pain. If you cannot lose weight, oh, that's another thing I didn't mention, what creates inflammation are food allergies. So a person that comes to me and I look at what they're eating and what they're doing and they're not losing weight, that almost always tells me they have a food allergy or food sensitivity. That food, just like when you know this, because you're a pharmacist, when you get a bacterial invasion, your immune system goes in and takes care of that bacteria and tries to get it out of the body. Well, that's how your body perceives a food it's allergic to. It perceives the food as foreign invader, get it out of there.
Or
So
sensitive to?
yeah, so you'll have a state of inflammation in your body where your body's trying to fight this off and you think you're just enjoying your ice cream. So what happens is when you have that inflammation in there, your body is under duress. And so people who are a little bit weight loss resistant, if they look at their face and they've just got that puffy kind of look, signs of inflammation, joint pain.
Am I puffy?
You can't tell on this thing. But just also poor energy. So those are signs of inflammation. But almost everyone has a little form of inflammation because we're exposed to toxins, we're exposed to bad food, whatever. But people who are trying to lose weight, they have a little more inflammation. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what do you do to reduce the inflammation?
Water. Water is the magic elixir. As a matter of fact, when I do my 5 steps to rapid weight loss, the first one is, no one guesses it, but it's always water. The body is 70% water, the brain is 80% water. The more you can hydrate the cells and help the systems that normally remove toxins, like your urinary system, your lymph system, sweating, anything you can do to help those organs eliminate fluids and toxins that it doesn't need, the better. So water hydrates you, assists in the detox process. It works to control appetite, and it helps move toxins and stuff out of the joints that are creating this sort of yucky feeling. Yeah. Yeah, water.
So what are your other 4 tips for those 5 tips for fat loss?
And I just sort of mentioned them. So it's water, eating protein at every meal and snack, little bits. I'm not talking about a steak, just a handful of nuts, right? Increase fiber, de-stress, and exercise. And exercise being anything, like walking. The two ladies I'm thinking of that are working on losing 100 pounds, they both started walking 15 minutes a day. Now they've bumped it up because they feel better. So now they're carrying hand weights, they're doing different things. But a workout doesn't mean you have to go to the gym and knock yourself out. You can just walk with purpose. It'll raise your heart rate, which then adds more oxygen to your body, cleans your body.
Now, but you specialize in, do you specialize in a group of women, age group, or, anybody who's experiencing weight loss resistance?
Yeah, anyone. I have male clients. I have some teenagers. The thing is that I think middle-aged women tend to relate to me because I am one. And then we can talk about hormones, menopause, all those things. But I have men. I have a few teenagers. It's harder for teenagers because, the whole teenage culture, all they eat are the highly reactive foods. So it's harder for them. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. But I tend to most of my clients are middle-aged women.
Yeah. Well, so my question is, you mentioned, if you want to add protein in your diet, you have nuts, right? And then, I had a friend who's a bodybuilder who said nuts are a fat source. So that's another piece of conflicting information, Okay. So what do you say to that?
So here's the thing. A bodybuilder, especially when he's going into competition, has to keep fat low to get that cut, chiseled look. But he doesn't live on that diet. He only, like the bodybuilders I know, they eat a really good diet, but when they're getting close to competition, that's when they really cut out all the fat to get that chiseled look for the competition. So he's right. But most of the bodybuilders I know, they eat more fats and nuts when they're not going into competition. So again, here we go. This is a person who has a particular goal, so he's going to stay away from fats. But what really is hurting America is back in the 70s, late 70s, when we went to the low-fat diet. That is what's killing us because the cells need fat. You need fat to make cholesterol. You need cholesterol to make hormones. You need fats to make hormones. You just need healthy fats and not a predominant amount of fat. So you need olive oil, nuts, avocados, coconut oil. Those are really good for you. But when we went to the low-fat diet, that's when everyone started eating more grains. And that's when we started to become obese and have more disease now than we ever have. So don't be afraid of fats. If you're trying to lose weight, you have to limit them a little, but you still need them. Especially omega-3s.
Yes, the fish oil. I never realized. I follow Thomas Tadlock, who you know, and he was saying, okay, you need to do at least 3 tablespoons of fish oil, which is about 3 grams of fish oil a day. I'm like, are you crazy? That's a lot of fish oil. And lo and behold, I lost weight and I lost fat, and I was doing 3 grams of fish oil a day. So.
Right. Right. Well, the omega-3s are antioxidants again, and they supply your body with, let's face it, some of the vitamins are fat soluble. You need to have fats in your body. You need to have fats in your body for your hormones to balance out. So does hormone imbalance affect weight loss? Yeah. So he's right. And it's also good for the skin, but you don't have to do fish oil. You can do flaxseed oil.
Yeah, especially if they're vegetarian, that's another option. Right. So here's a question. Earlier you were saying another tip for fat loss is exercise, and it doesn't have to be like a really intense workout, but I mean there's some camps that say you need high intensity interval training to be effective at fat loss.
Well, definitely, it's research shows that interval training is the most effective. You get fast results, but again, when you're dealing with someone who wants to lose 100 pounds, and they don't feel really good moving in their body yet, for them to start off with a low intensity, that is going to elevate their heart rate, which is going to give them positive results. But you're right, and you know this, as they progress, they want to do more, and they're going to start to look for bursts. But if I ask someone who hasn't exercised in 20 years to do burst training, I would lose that client.
It's about the baby steps.
Right. It's all, and it's about baby steps for you. Like I'm thinking of these two women that are very similar clients right now. They started about the same time. One went right to a personal trainer and wanted to do more intense workouts. The other one is doing just walking and adding hand weights. They're losing weight at the same rate. Isn't it interesting? So whatever's right for their body.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, that's all I have for you today in terms of questions. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how could they get a hold of you, Ivy?
They can go to my website down there, ivystirling.com, and they can email me from there. Or should I type in my email address? Or no, it's probably better just to get it from my website because I get so many emails they'll get lost. Or they can call me. All my contact information is on my website, and I do a free 30-minute session. So anyone who wants to call me and I have a question about this, that we can talk for 30 minutes, no obligation, and you can schedule that session right on my website.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivy. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take questions. I love it, actually.
I can tell.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, well, I really appreciate your time in sharing, all that you know with us, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future. So, you have a wonderful day, all right?
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
All right, bye, Ivy.
Bye-bye.
Hey, so I hope you enjoyed the show. That was Ivy from ivystirling.com, and all the links and resources mentioned today will be on the show notes at drann.com, spelled A-N-H as in healthy. And while you're there, make sure you jump on the Fit Foodie VIP email list at drann.com/VIP. And you'll be the first to know about new recipes and episodes, programs and events, and especially my Fit Foodie Delicious Detox program that I'm currently working on. And just to give you a sneak peek, in 2 weeks of detoxing and getting rid of some foods that I was potentially allergic to or sensitive to, I lost 4.5 pounds without even trying. No exercise. So also on this VIP email list, you'll get surprises and VIP only content, exclusive insights that I only share with my email subscribers, and much, much more. So make sure you hop on the list. And we've got plenty of fun guests coming up, including Robin Shirley, who is a health coach and who healed her juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, as well as Abel James, who has the #1 rated iTunes show, The Fat Burning Man Show, just to name a few, so stay tuned. And thanks so much again for stopping by. I'm Dr. Ann, and until next time, have a fit and tasty day. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends, because we need more people to hear the food is medicine message. And make sure to head over to drann.com and sign up for free updates, because I share some insights in my email updates that I don't share anywhere else. And before you go, don't forget to leave a comment, because I absolutely love hearing from you.